All right, good morning. Today, Steve and I are going to talk about innovation to productization in the OCP ecosystem. So that's how do ideas that come into our work streams and our various projects, and then how does that actually take the journey and that idea goes all the way to the marketplace. I'm Rob Coyle. I'm our Community Technical Program Manager here at the Open Compute Project. I've actually been a volunteer member for almost 6 years now, and at the start of the year I joined the foundation full-time. So as our ideas turn into specifications and contributions, that's my world. So we'll get into more of that. Steve, you want to introduce yourself too?
Yeah, I'm Steve Helvie, part of the team focused on our supplier and reseller channel.
All right, so products in the marketplace. Lots of, some that have been around for a little bit, lots of brand new ones. How do they actually get here? How are they in the marketplace, and how do they have little symbols that say OCP inspired or OCP accepted, and what does that really mean? And I guess that's our first start of questions. So what does it mean for a product to be accepted? What is the difference between a contribution listing and a product on the OCP Marketplace? There are differences. Do we need to write a new specification to list a product on the OCP Marketplace? And who can help us navigate the contribution and OCP Marketplace process? Teaser, we're involved. Okay, so maybe you've seen some of these logos before, or maybe if you're new to Global Summit, you're seeing some of these for the first time. The top are logos around our member companies. And so there's Open Platinum, Gold, Silver, and the Open Community, which are our largest category. And then below the line are products and services that are in the OCP ecosystem. Solution provider, Colo solution provider, the two I mentioned before, Open Accepted and Open Inspired, OCP Ready, which is part of our Colo program, and OCP Experience Center. We're really going to focus around Open Accepted and Open Inspired and the difference between those, because that is really from a product perspective how ideas and work within our projects really turn into product. So it's not one track. There's actually 3 paths you can take depending on your goals. Let me see if I can go through the animations here well. So the first goal would be, I want to list a contribution on the database. That's a specification, white paper, or other similar information, or possibly even IP, that you want to share out into the world. The next would be you want to list a contribution and a product. So that scenario might look like you have a specification around a specific application of a product, and you also have a product associated with that. So you're the one producing the contribution, and you also have the product. And then last, the primary goal is just the product listing. In this scenario, maybe you have a product that complies with an existing specification, but you didn't write the specification yourself. That's okay. We have that happen all the time. And so that flow has you on the OCP Marketplace via one of the existing specifications. So there's a process for the specification. We'll go through that, and then we'll go more into the marketplace after this. So all specification contributions start by signing a license agreement. This is an agreement between any of the companies that are involved, and maybe it's just a single company, is that here's the boundaries of the things we're going to discuss in a project. We may disclose these on project calls. We may present them at an event like this. And these are the bounds of our discussion that someone in that discussion wouldn't take and go run with. And so that's just a legal protection we put in place first. And then you build the spec. That usually happens either collaboratively with other companies on project calls or work streams, or that happens within your company. And then you present it to the project for feedback. This is where most of the work happens. First, you have an idea, you're participating in a work stream, you've produced some work, and you're now circulating that in your kind of smaller sub-community within our larger community for feedback to improve that. After it's presented to the project and you've incorporated the feedback, we have a process of presenting it to our technical steering committee. And that's a process that is scheduled. They meet monthly. So we schedule that in advance. You would do that with me. And then it gives the steering committee an opportunity to do feedback. So there's about a 1 to 2 week review period after you've incorporated any feedback from them, which should be pretty light. This should be pretty well 95% or better before it gets to the steering committee. Then they vote on it. Our steering committee is 15 members today. Once you have a majority vote from them, it gets released to publication. So you sign a final specification agreement, which locks that spec in place. So if there's IP inside that spec, essentially you're saying, this is what I'm contributing. Nothing more, nothing less. So it locks that kind of in time, and then we publish it on the OCP database, and it's released to the public. That looks like this. So go ahead and pull out your phone if you're not on your phone already. Make sure that I did the QR code right. And that takes you to the contribution page within the OCP website. There's 4 contributions that I actually just published this morning. And that has everything. That has listings from our colo service providers. It has products. It has white papers. You can sort it by company, by project. You can use the search. And this goes back, every contribution that we have actively listed. And so if you have a specification or a white paper, this is where it would end up.
All right. So companies have written the specification, they've worked with Rob, gone to the steering committee, it's been approved. Now what? You have an approved specification, and you may say, well, I want one of these logos, and I want to put it on the marketplace. There are 2 opportunities. One is green, one is gray. What are the difference? There's primarily one key difference. The green logo, OCP accepted or open accepted, has the specification and design files have been contributed by the manufacturer. And the product is available. On the gray side, OCP inspired means that there is a specification associated with that particular product, but the design files are not available and have not been disclosed by the manufacturer for whatever reason. So we have a lot of both accepted and inspired on the marketplace. Both are of equal importance to us, and both are equally represented by those adopters when they look for OCP hardware. They do definitely want OCP accepted or inspired. So when you see vendors saying, well, we kind of comply with this, or we're involved in OCP, it's not the same as having those 2 badges. Those 2 logos mean something to people writing RFPs, and they mean something to the people looking for something that they know has been reviewed and adhered to by the steering committee of OCP with a community of several thousand engineers overviewing that specification. I'm going to go through just 3 or 4 examples of what you can find today on the marketplace and how it got there. So this is a good example of an open spec with a single supplier. And what Rob had mentioned is we do have several of these. It's 2 examples. The top one is a switch. Celestica, the vendor, wrote the specification, and they made the subsequent product. And they disclosed the design files. So everything is open there. You can go look at the Gerber files, the mechanical layouts, and the specification behind it. The bottom is Mytek's OpenEdge server, another very highly viewed product on our website. They wrote the specification. They then manufactured that particular product. They chose not to disclose the design files. Both are equally acceptable within OCP. There's an open spec or a prosumer multi-party type of supply chain example that we put together. We've seen a lot of the hyperscalers here speak over the last couple days about what they're doing on the supply chain. These are 2 examples of specifications that came from our board members. The top one is Intel around the cold plate or the rack door heat exchange connectors. That is one specification that Intel put out, and then we had multiple suppliers release products based off of that specification. So one of the great things and the best operating model of OCP is that I build a multi-vendor supply chain. So if I'm a consumer out there, I want the opportunity to work off of one spec, but I want multiple suppliers to potentially provide that to me. And the bottom is another great example. This is the NVMe cloud storage SSD, and Samsung being the first to market on our marketplace, and then followed by Smart Holdings following that. So again, specs written by someone else, a multi-vendor supply chain to help fulfill that. Yesterday, you would have seen in the keynote from people like Intel talking a lot about modularity. This is new within OCP within the last month or two, where we're starting to see modularity components appear on the marketplace. The top is a great example. Look at all the logos associated with that specification around DC Secure Control Module. All of those companies worked in Rob's process under the framework to put together one spec. All the collaborators, competitors, and then we have people that were not involved in the spec making a product associated with it. So Pegatron adhering to the top one, and then the bottom one here, a Cloudflare Lenovo spec being produced by Mytek. And we'll see a lot more of this with the DCMHS specs. How many DCMHS specs are there now?
I mean, there's got to be, there's half a dozen.
Yeah, at least.
And
yeah.
then they're on their wiki, if you're interested in DCMHS, they're even releasing drafts now on the wiki. So you can kind of see what's coming in advance because there's so much happening in that group. So a lot of opportunity there.
And the last example that I wanted to give is around how the specifications drive the supply chain. Without the specifications, our marketplace would not have anything to show for it. So here's OpenRack v3, the ecosystem. Last year, there was a lightning talk around everyone contributing to OpenRack v3 across every part of the component. So there's 10 specifications written up here, and you can see the names associated with it. On the right are just a couple of the vendors showcasing their products now on the marketplace. Cheval Group, Murata, Eaton, and it's proliferating to aspects that involve OpenRack v3. In the bottom, you see JTech, which has a data automation cart that fits OpenRack v2 and v3 that can haul the fully loaded racks around the data center. And that is on display at the OCP Experience Center now, showcasing their cart. So this is a good example of how specifications come to life through the OCP Marketplace and through other programs. I do want to highlight, there's the QR code if you ever wanted to see the OCP Marketplace. We're approaching over 260 SKUs. And it's not just the number of SKUs that matter. It's about being able to piece together your own supply chain using the hardware, the open ecosystem that we built. There are other programs that we have in the OCP Solution Provider Program. We alluded to them at the beginning. We now have OCP Safe, the session prior to this, that falls under this category. We have OCP Ready, which has to do with data center facilities. The OCP Experience Center programs that allow people to go see, test, and develop and work with the OCP hardware in their local area. This is our social media reach. Those numbers are a bit dated. Those numbers are a bit higher. And then Christoph from Scale Up Technologies did a presentation a few sessions ago about how they're building, as an example of the solution, the OCP Experience Center that they put together in Berlin. And these are the type of partner-led events that we do for the folks that are on the marketplace and are out being a reseller of OCP hardware. Call to action. If you have any questions about the first part of the process or the second part of the process, Rob and I are your key contacts, and we're happy to spend as much time as necessary to go through this. There are always this reluctance when I talk to people about, well, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable giving up a specification. And I always encourage people to look at the types of companies that have already signed these specification agreements. Intel, Microsoft, Nokia, Google. Needless to say, they have quite extensive legal teams. So if they're quite comfortable working in this open environment, most people can probably find a way to work in this open collaborative environment. And that's my parting thought. Rob?
Yeah, I'll just echo your thoughts on the specification process. Another eye-opening opportunity is just look at the existing specifications and look on how they're structured. Just because you are interested in participating in the marketplace and you have a component or you have a device that you would like to get recognition for complying with maybe an existing spec, it doesn't mean you're releasing all your IP. It can be just part of the connector or just the interface or just a segment of it. It could be the whole thing too. But take a look and see what others have done, and you'll find what's right for your company. And then also when we start the process, you're completely in control of that IP. You own it forever. As long as you're in control of that IP, you're just licensing it available to our marketplace. And then even through the process, if for some reason something changes within your company or your partners, you always have the freedom to say, oh, stop, actually we changed our mind, there's something we're not going to do here. We rarely have that. Almost never have that happen. But know that you're always in the driver's seat throughout the whole process.
That's it. We know lunch is pending, so thank you all very much. Any questions? We can take them now, or you can catch us after the session. Thank you all.